Hello, beautiful being. In this video, I want to draw your attention on the topic of pleasure. Pleasure is a legitimate doorway to higher states of consciousness. And when I say pleasure, I mean this extraordinary sensation within your body. I mean this avalanche of ecstasy flowing through the physical. I mean this state of mind and this energetic charge that makes you forget uh, space and time and maybe even your name. This is what I want to talk about when I say pleasure. I want to talk about blissful, ecstatic states truly felt within your system. Unfortunately, nowadays there is much confusion, much distortion, much misunderstanding and shadow around the topic of pleasure. Let's start by the example of advertisement. Basically, pleasure is sold to us on every step, up to a state where we believe that buying a new item will bring us pleasure. I mean, yes, maybe a gift or a new possession can bring you a temporary satisfaction, but it is a temporary satisfaction. It is satisfaction coming from the outside, triggered by the object in the outside. It's not an intrinsic state. It's not revealing of your true nature. And usually it lasts very shortly, it only lasts until you pass by the next billboard and have a new trigger or have a new item that you need to possess in order to be happy, in order to be satisfied and in your pleasure. This is going more into consumption. This is going more into possession. This is not the pleasure as part of your nature. This is not a pleasure that I would love to talk about. In the context of pleasure, it seems that sexuality is probably the most difficult topic, or at least a topic that offers the most potential triggers. It can get so confusing, so distorted that in intimate settings we even forget to actually focus on the authentic pleasure. And when I say authentic pleasure, I mean the pleasure that we actually feel in our body, in our system, the true full sensation within our body, mind, energy field. We forget to focus on that because of all the pressure, all the confusion about shoulds and shouldn'ts and what I have to do and what the other has to do and needs to do. And all of a sudden, instead of truly feeling and being in the moment, in the intimacy, we start acting, we start pretending. We do as if we experience pleasure, but we are actually totally confused and lost and drifted away, not in the moment and in the sensation at all. And this is sad. This is where two people are basically not honest to each other. Especially for women, this topic of pretending and acting in an intimate setting can be a huge barrier towards the own happiness. There are so many women that I hear are longing for intimacy, are longing for honesty in their relationships. But intimacy is nothing else than revealing yourself layer after layer, revealing your authenticity, truthfulness, layer after layer. And if one is not even able to access the own authenticity, to show their own pleasure, to talk about the lack of pleasure, to be honest about all of that, then how are we to create an intimate setting, a truthful, intimate relationship, a healthy, intimate partnership? So, intimacy is also about showing yourself with the truthful pleasure that you experience. Another shadow that I see around the topic of pleasure is the show off. And what I mean by show off is this kind of behavior, um, this need to draw attention on your own pleasure, this need to be seen by as many people as possible, to be commented, to be experienced. It's really like this huge show off about your intimate world, about your inner world of experience. And the problem with this is that um, all of the sudden there is again more focus on the outside, on the people seeing you with your pleasure than the actual experience of your truthful nature within. And in my eyes, this is a little bit of a pitfall, because I believe that um, the short term satisfaction in such cases usually comes from the attention, from being seen, from being acknowledged. But unfortunately, not from the authentic experience, from the authentic sensation within. It's not coming from this relaxation um, into the blissful sensations, into the pleasurable sensations. But it again becomes a contraction, a need to be seen, a need to show off, a need to expose yourself. So this is another shadow, another pitfall that I see around pleasure and that I experience quite often nowadays. The total opposite are the cases when pleasure is forbidden by the guilt and shame. Guilt and shame can bring a lot of bitterness, because whenever surpassing our pleasure, we become a dried up version of who we actually are. Depression might follow, anxiety might follow, bitterness and anger might follow. Holding back your pleasure, it's sucking out your liveliness, it's sucking out your life force energy out of your system, which is a pity, because you are not living your full self, your grown up self, your big, beautiful, ecstatic self, but only a shadow of it, a dried out version. And shame and guilt are um, huge barriers in the realm of pleasure, of course, and usually they come from our conditioning, they come from how we learned we need to be, how we learned that a good member of society should be. And all of these are, as I said, shadows that could be overcome, that needs to be overcome uh, on the way towards ecstatic, authentic, blissful pleasure that can be also a teacher in life. Authentic, truthful pleasure always happens in the present moment. It always happens in the now. It drags all our focus to this blissful state. All our being, all our presence is focused on the sensation itself. And there is this feeling of being complete, as if the search has come to an end. It's this state of fullness, completeness, fulfillment that eventually supports us in seizing our mind. There is nothing more that needs to be planned, nothing more that needs to be achieved, nowhere else to go. Whenever blissful pleasure is felt in the moment, we feel complete, we feel fulfilled. Our mind becomes still. We are truly focused, completely focused. And these are also the effects of a successful meditation. And this is what explains why and how pleasure could be part of our spiritual journey. This is the point where pleasure and bliss can support us in our spiritual growth. They are two gates to enlightened states of consciousness. One is the gate of Shiva, the gate of stillness, silence, void. And the other one is the gate of Shakti, the gate of energy, the gate of ecstasy, the gate of life fully pulsating within your system. This is a legitimate entrance to enlightened states of mind. And if you would love to learn a little bit more about these two aspects of Shiva and Shakti, you can also watch my video where I talk about their sacred dance. I will put a link in the comments below. However, what I want to express here is that ecstasy, bliss, pleasure, whenever felt authentically within our physical, within our energetic body, it brings us to a state of fullness, a state of a full overflowing heart, a heart that overflows with its very own essence, with its love, with its joy, with its truthfulness. And this is a legitimate entrance to enlightenment. The beauty of Tantra is that it supports the door gate of Shakti. Tantra is one of the teachings that supports us experiencing the concept of Shakti, experiencing the pleasure and the blissful states. Tantra even gives us tools how to enter these experiences. Tantra gives us teachings so that we can understand these experiences. Tantra gives us teachings that explain to us that void and pulsating life are equally valuable. And the good news is that ecstatic pleasure is a state always accessible. It is all about learning how to enter it. It is all about learning how to remain there longer and longer and longer. So our system really needs to be trained into experiencing ecstasy. Our system needs to be trained into how to hold ecstasy, how to contain ecstasy. And all of this can be done only by actually entering ecstatic and pleasurable experiences day after day. It is just like we are training ourselves and learning how to practice meditation. It is just like we learn how to practice our asanas and to get better and better in the posture. The same way, pleasure can be learned, pleasure can be welcomed into our system. And part of this journey also means to leave behind our conditioning. Part of the journey towards pleasure needs us to look at all the shadows that hold us back, everything that is not allowing us to fully tap into ecstasy, everything that we learned, all the patterns that we are repeating and repeating, all of this needs to be looked at. All of this needs to be overcome. And it really is a learning process, it's a practicing process like everything else. Pleasure is accessible, it just needs to be learned. My invitation to you is to open up spaces within your daily routine for your pleasure practice. Open up moments of awareness where you can experience pleasure fully. And there are so many ways of doing this. It is really about what you experience as pleasurable, what brings bliss to you, what brings ecstasy to you. You could just take a moment and gaze at a blossoming tree, like be present with it fully. See the light shining through the leaves. See the wind moving the petals of the blossoms. Just experiencing it completely and fully for a couple of seconds. And maybe you feel this heart opening. You feel warmth and inspiration flowing through your system. Allow it for a short moment and then let it go, let it pass away and continue with your daily life. Or the next time you touch your own body or maybe the body of your partner, just take this moment to completely be in the sensation. Feel the skin, the tickling, the warmth. Be fully in that sensation of this caress. And maybe you feel again this opening of the heart. Maybe you are fully into the charge, the polarity between you and your partner. Open up spaces for these moments. And after that, just again let it go, and the moment can continue, and the play of intimacy or just your daily routine can continue. But open up these tiny windows of seconds, of minutes, where pleasure is fully welcomed. And you can do it even while um, drinking your morning tea or coffee. Just hold this cup in your hands and smell it. Feel the warmth of the liquid within. Feel this awakening of the first sip, this joyful awakening of the first moment when the coffee just reaches your tongue. And be fully with it. Be fully with this expectation of joy. And then you drink and life continues. The day continues. But you have practiced pleasure. You have opened up space for pleasure. And sometimes those practices might seem small or meaningless compared to your yoga session or compared to your meditation practice. However, whenever the challenging moments come, you'll be thankful to have been practicing this door gate towards pleasure. You'll be thankful when, through challenge, sadness, pain, come to be able to open up the gate to happiness, joy, and warmth. You'll be thankful to be able to focus on whatever brings bliss within your system. And through this bliss, you will find your own way of ceasing and diminishing pain and bitterness. Practice pleasure. Pleasure is learnable. Pleasure is all around. Pleasure is accessible in every single moment. It is within our hands to learn how to enter those precious states of being.